Okay, so what you're seeing here is a series of measurements that I took on either side of the radiator. These are temperature reading measurements. I took these with a laser thermometer. I got the car up to 201.6 degrees, turned off the engine, popped open the hood, took these measurements immediately after. You'll see that there are some spots near the top where the temperature reads quite high, which makes sense. And then down near the bottom where the outlet is, it gets down to maybe the lower 90s, which also makes sense. You will see, though, that there are some very cold spots randomly dispersed, and there also was an observed very dark spot indicating an old leak. So, what these measurements indicate is that there is likely some internal clogging in the radiator. It is not dispersing heat equally across the radiator. So, from this, I determined that the existing radiator was bad and could likely be the issue regarding the overheating. So that's when I made the decision that we're going to replace the radiator. So that's what this video will be dedicated towards. We'll be replacing that radiator and then doing a test drive after, and hopefully that'll be the end of our Hover heating issues.
All right, so it's been about 5, 6 weeks since I've been able to get Donna out of the lot here, but I think we're about there. So today, what we're going to be doing is removing the old radiator, putting the new one in. Of course, I need to drain and then refill and bleed the coolant system again. Hopefully, once the new radiator is in, that solves all of our issues, and we'll go from there. So the first thing I'm gonna do, I already got my top fan shroud off. So the next thing I'm gonna do is remove the fan, again with the O'Reilly's fan pulley clutch tool and the 30 millimeter wrench. Correction, 36 millimeter. All right, the next thing I'm gonna do now that the fan's off is I'm actually gonna take the engine belt off again, just because I don't want to get coolant all over it, and might as well get it out of the way, just create even just a tiny bit more space. It takes 30 seconds to get off. So I'll take that off, and then the next thing I'll do is I actually have access to one of the drain plugs for the coolant system on the engine block. This is the drain plug that Atlantic British recommends that you drain the coolant system from, rather than just removing hoses and making a huge mess everywhere. So I have full access to that drain plug. If you want to know exactly where that drain plug is, you can just go to Atlantic British's coolant hose replacement video. But so once I get the belt off, I'm going to remove that drain plug, drain out the coolant system to that level in the block, and then we'll go from there. All right, the next thing I'm gonna do, if it wants to focus, is I'm gonna take off the bottom radiator hose, drain out the rest of the coolant system. Once I've done that, I'm gonna take this bolt and this bolt off, remove this hose from the radiator, remove the top hose from the radiator, and then so I can get this plastic shroud part off, give myself some more room, and then we'll keep going. I am also going to remove the engine air filter, the filter and the box and the tube and everything. So there's just a couple clamps to disengage. I think one of mine is broken. Yeah, that one is broken. There's another one here on the left there. So I'll just remove this box, remove the airflow tubing, and I also bought a replacement filter, so I'll get that get that on here as well in the meantime. So got the top cover off, just undoing the clamps, taking it off, removing it from the mass airflow sensor tubing. Got an old filter here, so we'll be changing that out. And now just gonna remove this airflow box and take the cold air intake out as well. All right, so we got our cold air intake box out and the cold air intake itself. This actually was a lot more difficult than I was anticipating. So there are 3 plastic mounts here at the bottom, and those plastic mounts go through those 3 holes. A trick that it's really difficult to get the box out of those holes, but a trick that I found is you can go to the bottom of the car, and from the bottom of the car, take a mallet, you know, stick something skinny up underneath the mount, give it a few whacks, and that'll loosen it for you. So after a lot of effort, got the box, the cold air intake box out, got some more room here. One thing I will note is that my Land Rover Discovery comes with what's called secondary air. I don't know what secondary air is, but what it does mean is that I have 2 additional, on either side of the radiator, I have 2 additional air tubes. And the way to know if you have secondary air on a Land Rover Disco is to check for one of these, I don't know if this is like a air control valve or some sort of valve, and you're gonna have one of these on either side of the engine. So if you're replacing a radiator on a Land Rover Discovery 2, make sure you check if you have secondary air or not, because that'll dictate what radiator you need to get. Next, I need to remove this 10mm bolt, and there's a 10mm bolt on this side as well. Actually, the first thing I need to do is remove the battery in the battery box, so I'm going to do that here in a sec, give myself some more room, and then I'll take off the 10mm bolts. I also got a few items I need to look through, see what I need to disconnect. Here's an electrical, some sort of electrical connection here, and then there's also one lower, I'm not giving you a good angle, but there's another electrical connection lower on the left hand side of the radiator. I need to undo that as well. So we disconnected the negative terminal, disconnected the positive terminal from the battery, carefully removed the battery. Now just be careful if there's any leaked acid or anything like that. I'm going to clean it up with a rag. But then there's 4 bolts here we're going to remove, so that we can remove this battery plastic casing. Right, beyond the 4 bolts, which I've gotten 3 out, and I'm waiting for WD-40 to penetrate the other because it won't move. There's another bolt here. So there's another bolt here. There's also a bolt right there. And then underneath the hydraulic jack, there's another bolt there. So gonna take those 3 bolts I just pointed out, gonna wait for the WD-40 to penetrate this guy, take that out, and then we'll remove this whole plastic battery and jack holder all in one piece. It'll just lift straight out. Here's one electrical connector that I need to undo. This is on the passenger side of the radiator near the thermostat. Here's another connector that needs to be undone. It's on the passenger side of the radiator, down close to the chassis, below the lower radiator hose. Just a simple push in and remove. Alright, so as is customary for me working on all this stuff, something that should only take maybe a few minutes is taking me hours. Been trying to remove all these bolts But this one here has been especially hard to get off. It looks like the rust and the maybe some acid leak from a battery from a while ago has gotten the bolt and washer to basically fuse to this plastic box. So got some gas, flame, torch, and you know, we're gonna have to do what we must to get this off. But we have to get this off. There are two on either side, two very small screws down here attaching this plastic piece to the radiator. And at least on the other side we can get to it, but right now on this side there's absolutely no way we can get to it without removing this box. So got to do what we have to do to get this one bolt out. Alright, it was an extreme struggle, but with the help of my flame here, finally got off that rusted bolt. That was a huge struggle, but now we can remove this cover just lifting it straight up, and we can get to those small bolts. I actually already removed one over here on this side and removed the bracket. I'll show you this bracket right here. Okay, so there's this small screw on the lower side. Remove that. This little guy here. So just need to remove there's another screw right there. Put some WD-40 on it because it's kind of tight, but I'll remove that. And then I just have to repeat on the other side. Then I can get this battery box off. Now that I can get this battery box off. Take 2, 3, we'll get it off. And then supposedly we should be able to just lift the radiator right out. And we got the new one sitting over there. Alright, so after hours of work, again, main reason being this one bolt over in the battery compartment that was fused to the metal that I had to use the flamethrower to release the rust on. That was really what took the most time. Everything else was just removing screws and bolts. Now we're trying to lift the radiator out. The only thing is the secondary air is still somehow connected to it, so I need to, I don't know if I missed a bolt or, looking at the new radiator, there is for sure only 3 bolt holes on each side, 3 screw holes. So I definitely got them all. I'll just have to, I guess, wiggle the secondary air off. It must just be kind of fitting snugly onto the radiator. So I see what's going on. The secondary air, that is this bar right here. It's actually welded. See if I can get a good angle. I might not be able to. Right there, it is right below my finger. It is welded there, but then there's a little metal plate, I don't know, hooked into the side of the radiator. So I need to maybe mallet or slide that out. That completely worked. I was surprised. Just gave it a good light mallet on the side, knocked the secondary air out, and just do it on the other side. radiator out. Oh my god. That took a lot of effort. So this is great because this is the first time we can actually see fully what the condition of the old radiator was. As you can see over here, there's a pretty massive, that is likely the source of our overheating issue right then and there. This old leak that, yes, it might have clogged itself up with dirt and grime, stopped coolant from leaking from the radiator itself, but there's probably a whole bunch of clogs in there internally, which is halting the heat transfer of the radiator, causing our overheating issues. You can see that dark spot covers maybe 10% of the entire surface area of the radiator. Okay, so looks like it was in pretty bad shape here. And I don't even know what that is. Some putty, stop an old leak. So I'm happy we are replacing this. Now I do need to remove this guy because it's connected to something. I don't really know what it's for, but I know it's for something because I unplugged it. It's an electrical connection. So, and then the new radiator doesn't come with it. It just comes with a blank spot here. So I'll remove this electrical connector and the nut below it, get that installed on the new radiator. I also have extra bottom feet. I bought some extras just in case, but shouldn't need them. And by the way, yes, I am gonna clean up that mess. All right, so let's get this onto the new radiator, and then time to slide the new radiator in. So you can see I am just using a wrench here to remove this piece so we can get it on the new radiator. So here's the piece when you get it out. I wish I had a new gasket for it, but it is what it is now. And then it goes right here. So that's how the new radiator will come. So I'm just gonna remove this with a Phillips or flathead and then put this guy right there. Well, would you look at that though? The screw came with an O-ring. Sweet. Alright, so old radiator completely out. Time to just slide the new radiator right in. I'm not sure how smooth this is gonna go with the secondary air. Not sure. There you go. You can kind of see me holding the top rung. There's two rungs. Yeah, so we'll see how smooth it goes putting in the new radiator with all this here, but we'll just go little by little. Now we want to be careful with this because we don't want to damage our brand new fins and radiator here. That's very delicate. Now there's a couple holes at the bottom cut out for the rubber mounts. There's two rubber mounts on either side of the radiator, so I'm just trying to locate those, set her down. So now we basically just do everything in reverse. I'm gonna get my, there's two small screws on each side that connect the secondary air to the radiator. Then there's 10mm bolts, one on each side at the top of the radiator, that connects the plastic bracket. There's one plastic bracket on each side that needs to go in. Once all of that is in, I'll just put back the battery plastic box, the uh, secondary or the fresh air intake, cold air intake box, put that in as well. I'm going to replace the engine air filter and just bolt everything down, do everything the opposite way, reconnect the battery, and then we'll, and then reconnect the lower radiator hose, the upper radiator hose, and the bleed hose. Reconnect all three hoses to the new radiator, put the shrouds back on, and then eventually we'll fill her up with coolant and bleed the system. All right, so after all day, pretty much, finally got everything reassembled. Everything's back in its place. Refilled the system. I'm gonna run the car for 15 minutes with the heater on to bleed it out, and that's about it. Then we'll wait 12 hours, see what the level in the expansion tank looks like, and then hopefully all of our issues are solved. I'm not even gonna hope or pray anymore, because just want it to be over. But so next time I'll start the camera, it'll be after a test drive, and hopefully our issues are solved. We should be seeing her at the maximum, getting up to 205 degrees. So fingers crossed for 205 degrees.
Okay, so good news and bad news. Just using this photo as a backdrop here, as I don't have a video. So performed a test drive. The good news, straight up, is that the car did not overheat, which is actually extremely, extremely great news. After all this, almost a, a month and a half of the car being inoperable for long distances due to overheating. So that's great. The bad news is that the car did still get up to 221 degrees, which is exactly the highest temperature that it got before we even started touching the thing a month and a half ago. So, did we make any progress as far as reducing the temperature that the engine was running at? No, we made no progress at all. But did we get the car back to an operable state? Yes, which is really, really exciting. So basically, to just give a bit more detail, took it out for a test drive, drove it for quite a while. The maximum temperature that the truck got up to while it was moving, so air was kind of blowing across the radiator naturally just by driving. The maximum temperature reached was about 216, 215, so not any huge issues there. It would usually, the temperature would drop usually pretty significantly while it was being driven. Now, when the car was sitting in idle, that was slightly a different story. Basically, after the drive, parked it, let it sit in idle for a while. The maximum it got up to while it was in idle, and it was the same when I was stopping at a red light or stop sign throughout the drive, it would get up to 221. But thankfully, it did not keep climbing up to 224, 225, which is what it was doing before, and I would have to shut off the truck. So it would hover at 221 for a while, and then after a bit would actually go down to, I believe it was about 217. And then after 217, it even went down further after another few minutes down to 215.6. So to see the car finally not overheat and actually reach 221 and go down was a massive accomplishment. But it is still quite disappointing that we made no improvement to the overall highest temperature that the engine runs at. My next step will be to eventually replace the current Land Rover OEM thermostat with an inline thermostat. However, I will not be doing that mod for quite a while, as It's been a month and a half that I've been able to drive the truck, and I miss driving it. So I'm gonna kind of cool it. I finally got it to run cool enough that it's not overheating. I want to actually enjoy it for a little while, enjoy it for the rest of the summer. So gonna pretty much cool it on the um, major projects for now, probably until the end of summer, and then over winter, keep improving the truck and get it to a great state. Probably do the inline thermostat mod before next summer, and hopefully overall by next summer, the truck will look a lot different than it does now in a good way. And yeah, just want to have a chance to actually enjoy it for a bit. So I think that concludes for now this multiple part series on upgrading the coolant system. We ended up not making any improvements to the temperature at all, but at least got everything replaced. It was a huge series of lessons learned. I learned a lot about the truck. Um, it was a pretty bad but good, memorable experience. So that concludes coolant system upgrades. Um, and we'll see at a later time, what the next project is.